I love the guys at Meidas Touch. They have the #1 podcast in America, and there's a reason for that. They're very good at what they do, and we always love when we touch base with Ron Filipkowski from Meidas Touch. Ron, good to see you again, my friend, on another very busy news day. I'm sure you would agree. How are you?
Yeah, you too. Good to see you again. You're all dressed up today. You got a nice polo shirt on and everything.
You're right. For me, this is dressed up. I'm a radio guy, right? I like flip-flop shorts and a T-shirt, but hey, maybe Marjorie Taylor Greene's boyfriend will come in here one day and tell me how come you're not wearing a tie. But anyway, right. Before I want to get to Amazon, and there's so many topics I want to get to you, but I want to start with this. You had said something on Twitter that was extremely funny today, but true, that even somebody like Kim Jong-un might think that this is a bit much. What do you make of these meetings that Donald Trump is having, where Pam Bondi's saying you've done the best job of any president in the first 100 days, even though his approval rating is at 39%, and all these people get together, and it's like a scene out of North Korea, right, Ron?
Yeah, some of our best presidents have had cabinets who really went at each other, disagreed with each other, and it shows the strength of the leadership of the president involved, because many of them intentionally set up their cabinets where they were very bright people who disagreed with each other philosophically on a lot of things. And their management style would be to have cabinet meetings where they would sit back and let these guys go at it for quite a while. And then finally they would go, okay, this is what we're going to do. And that was it. And Washington was one whose cabinet all hated each other. Lincoln, same thing. JFK, they didn't hate each other, but they all were very philosophically different. Ronald Reagan's was too. So, it's like that's a strength. Okay. So then we go and no, by the way, cabinet meetings are typically behind closed doors, because that's when you hash things out. You're candid. You tell the president where I think we're going wrong. You go at it with each other. And presidents oftentimes arrive at some of the most monumental decisions in American history after those knockdown dragouts behind closed doors. But Trump's had 2 cabinet meetings that have both been the same, that they're completely non-substantive. He invites media in there. So there's all this media, there's all these cameras. The whole thing is in front of the cameras. So there's no substantive policy discussions whatsoever. The whole thing is a glaze session where just everyone goes around the table and says how much they love Trump and how great he is, while he's sitting there with a 41% approval rating with the public. So, it's sickening to watch it, where, person after person after person just constantly praising this guy. And I just, me being a historian, my degree is in history. I used to be a history teacher, and just putting what's happening right now in the context with some of the other presidents and their cabinet meetings makes it even worse to me.
Yeah, it's a dictatorship, no doubt. Ron, what do you make of the fact that Donald Trump takes to Truth Social today, doing what he normally does, blaming Joe Biden for the stock market? So under Joe Biden, that was apparently Donald Trump's stock market. And now under Donald Trump, this is apparently Joe Biden's stock market. And I know you talked about this. This is absurd. But the fact that anybody would actually believe this is even more absurd. What do you make of Trump, again, blaming the economy and the stock market and all of his problems on Joe Biden?
Yeah, somebody, forget which media outlet, just did a story where the first 2 months of his presidency, he mentioned Joe Biden 580 times. So I mean, he clearly has Biden derangement syndrome, him and his press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, who just constantly, mentions Joe Biden, blames everything on Biden. So, I covered the campaign. I watched every single speech that he made, every rally, every interview, every podcast, literally like thousands of Trump interviews I watched. And it was like every day the stock market was up when Biden was president. He was saying, well, that's because the investors know I'm going to win this election and they're feeling good. And then it would go down and he would blame Biden for somehow for that. And then it would go back up and he'd say, oh, this is because of me. So it was like that for like 2 years, where he was constantly claiming it would go up and it's because of me, and it would go down. It's because, his favorite line in 2022 was, when the stock market was starting to surge in the second half of 2022, he was saying, well, it's still running on the fumes of what I did. It's like, I mean, this guy's utterly ridiculous. So he comes out today and he's like, yes, well, the market's going down and it's probably going to keep going down in the second quarter, but it's all Biden's fault. And it's like, even like his hardcore cultists are going to go, oh, they're going to buy whatever he sells. But the smart people around, in the Republican Party are saying like, come on, man, this
even
is
Dave
ridiculous.
Portnoy, he's even lost Dave Portnoy, like one of his biggest supporters.
Because Portnoy's always talking about how much money he's losing in the stock market every day. So he's a day trader. He's a gambler. He gambles on sports and stocks. So yeah, he'll be like, I'm down 8 million. What the hell is Trump doing? So, obviously he's hurting Portnoy a lot, but there's been others too, like Senator John Kennedy, who's very MAGA, very right wing, is just like, no, this is Trump's stock market. It's Trump's economy. He owns it. He needs to stop this nonsense.
Yeah, no doubt. What do you make of what took place yesterday with Amazon? I wanted to talk to you about this because it appears as though Trump was very angry. We've heard reports, as you have, Ron, that he picked up the phone and called Jeff Bezos, and Bezos did what you predicted, and you were right, that he would eventually cave. That's exactly what Bezos did. What do you make of this?
Yeah, it was funny doing this in real time, watching it play out, because the story comes out by Punchbowl at 8 a.m. and they break the story that Amazon, and by the way, Amazon's CEO is not Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos is on a yacht with his girlfriend. He's not running the day-to-day operations, right?
Right.
So it's a CEO obviously made this decision. Maybe Bezos knew about it, maybe he didn't. But we're going to start showing the tariff amount when you buy some, when you see something on Amazon, it's going to say the price, the tax, and the tariff amount, and let everybody see with open eyes. Because obviously a huge percentage of the Amazon stuff comes from China, a big chunk of it. So those 145% tariffs are affecting them tremendously. So, they put the story out, and then Levitt comes into the press conference and she's holding a copy of the story in her hand. And so she gets asked about it and she goes off, she trashes Amazon and she's saying, this is hostile. It's hostile political stuff by Amazon. And then an hour later at 10 o'clock, the Amazon puts out a statement saying, oh, no. We were just talking about doing it on our discounted products, not on all of them, but we've decided not to do it on any now. So it's all gone. So I said at the time, look, one of two things happened here. Either Punchbowl got the story wrong, which is basically what Amazon's trying to say, or Trump called Jeff Bezos and got him to back down in that 1 hour window from between 8 and 10 that happened. And so so I predicted he probably got Bezos, because the reason why I didn't think Punchbowl got it wrong is because Punchbowl's main sponsor is Amazon.
Well, of course. What a shocker.
So they're not, that's why they got the story. That's why they got the scoop. I mean, they got it from their main sponsor. They're not going to get it wrong.
Right.
They're paying their bills. So yes, we find out Trump admitted that he called Bezos and got him to back down. And so, that's a pretty scary thing when, the president of the United States has these guys so intimidated, when reality is, in many respects, Bezos has a lot more power than Trump.
You would think so, but at one point Bezos was very outspoken against Donald Trump, and then all of a sudden he realized, okay, I better suck up to this guy because it'll be better for my bottom line. That's exactly what's going on here, and I put Mark Zuckerberg in the exact same category. Sure. It's extremely unfortunate. Do you give Whitmer credit for what took place with her brief interaction with Donald Trump? Because it appears as though it was a victory for her yesterday. What do you make of this?
Yeah, I had a feeling you were going to ask me that. Okay, so that was a dangerous situation, obviously, and I spoke to some people with Whitmer's team before, giving me the heads up, because they knew that I was hard on Newsom and I was hard on her trip to the Oval Office when she got pulled in there and she put the binder in front of her face. So I think that before this was even announced that Whitmer and Trump were going to do something together, they contacted me. And we're just like, look, they're trying to basically reason with me. And I understood what they were saying. They're like, look, she's governor of a state. She's trying to save this military base. Trump can close the military base, snap of the fingers. This is important to Michigan. It's important to our economy. And she's doing the absolute minimum that she has to do. She's not going to his rally. She's going to meet him at the airport. They're going to do their brief at the Air Force, at the Army base. And they're going to do a brief little thing, and then she's going to go. And I said, well, devil's in the details here, guys. I'm like, look, you have to look at it like this. The way that the Democratic base voters view Trump is he's not a normal Republican president. This isn't Whitmer going to meet with George W. Bush. This is the way they view Donald Trump is he is the personification of evil. So when you're basically going and shaking his hand and taking pictures with him, the way Democratic primary voters for president in 2028 are viewing this is that's Hitler and you're hanging out with Hitler. And so, I understand it's a tough balancing act when you're trying to run a state, keep military bases open, in Newsom's case, get disaster aid and still have to deal with this guy, but not kill yourself. So
right.
I thought she did okay. I thought she probably shouldn't have gone up there to speak, but she also went up there and did not thank Trump. She just said, I appreciate that this base is staying open. Yeah. And she didn't mention him by name. So I thought she handled it as well as she could have.
Completely agree with it. She did what she needed to do to get the help that they needed. So I agree with you there. Ron, I have to ask you about this. The MS, Donald Trump and the administration claiming that this guy Garcia is an MS-13 gang member. I want to ask you about this because to me, this is exactly where the Republican Party is at today. His hand, and they claim that those were gang tattoos, and we all know that was debunked and those were photoshopped. So in this ABC interview, he's asked about that. And he believes the nonsense. No, look at those tattoos. It proves that he was in a gang. And then the person who was doing the interview, Morin, who I thought did a pretty good job, said, well, no, Mr. President, that was debunked and that those were photoshopped. And then he starts attacking him. And I'm thinking to myself, this is where the Republican Party is at today. Where do you make of this? I mean, there's no evidence that this guy was in a gang. There's no evidence that he's a violent criminal or has any criminal record for that matter. The Supreme Court rules 9-0. Donald Trump has defied the Supreme Court, just like he does with every other judge that rules against him. What do you make of this story and the way Donald Trump continues to, parade the fact that this guy's an MS-13 gang member when there's no evidence to prove that?
Well, in an interview before that, he claimed that the Supreme Court ruled 9-0 for him when they ruled the other way. Right. And this goes back to the cabinet and his advisors. He's surrounded by liars. And he's surrounded by people who only want to bring good news to him and tell him what he wants to hear, because it's literally like the old emperors in Rome where, like, if you brought them bad news, you'd be executed, even though you're telling them the truth. That's the way their mentality is. So he has fed lies. It's not only is he a habitual liar, but everyone around him is too. So he's constantly fed lies. So I believe that he actually thought that photo was a real photo because that's what he was shown by his people and told was real. Just like it was Stephen Miller who told him that they won in the Supreme Court 9-0 when they lost. That was Miller who told him that. So, and of course he's got a pea brain and he's on the golf course half of his presidency.
Right.
By the way, the Michigan trip was the very first time he took a trip as president where he did not play golf. That was the first time. Every other time he played golf on his travel. So, I mean, he it's not like this guy reads anything on his own. He only knows what is being fed to him by the people around him. And the people around him are feeding him a steady diet of lies. So he's not somebody who's interested in the truth anyway. And so he just pushes the lie. So when he's confronted by it, he's almost shocked. Yeah. Like, what are you talking about? That's not a real tattoo. What do you mean?
It's absurd. But according to Elon Musk, they are the media now. These people who throw out this right-wing propaganda and photoshopped pictures. Ron, before I let you go, tell me if you disagree with me on this or not. I want to get, and this isn't the most important issue of the day or of the week or of the year, but Saquon Barkley, I want to ask you a little bit about this, because my take is as follows. Listen, you have the right to play golf with the president. If you want to hang out with the president, it's not against the law. Okay. Not saying you're a criminal. However, Saquon Barkley was the guy that was at the forefront of Black Lives Matter. I shouldn't say the forefront, but he was the guy that was taking a knee, wanting equality, which, by the way, I commend him for doing all that stuff. Donald Trump called people that looked like him sons of bitches. And then Saquon Barkley's reaction to what he got was, well, I'm just respecting the office. Okay, well, if you shook the guy's hand and you went to the White House and you accepted an award or something, fine. But he spent 24 to 48 hours with this guy. That's not respecting the office. That's hanging out with the guy as if you like him personally. Am I wrong, and are people wrong criticizing somebody like Saquon Barkley for hanging out with the guy that called people that look like him sons of bitches?
Yeah. So I felt I got a lot of Herschel Walker vibes out of this, man. So because Herschel Walker was like Trump's black friend for like 30 years, right? And because he played football with him. And so like he would always roll out Herschel Walker to events like, this is my friend Herschel, and Herschel loved him, still does, kisses Trump's ass, idolizes him, all that. And so Trump loves to like latch on to these athletes who are just not very worldly, let's say, not very keeping up, naive, a little bit naive. And when I listened to Saquon talk about this, which I did several times, I listened to his video and read what he put on Twitter. It just seems like he's just very naive, easily taken advantage of. And he needs someone to sit down with him and explain to him the implications of what he's doing here. Because at first he was just like, well, of course I went to the White House. I have to respect the office of the president. Then we find out he played golf with him. Then we find out he's doing photos with him in the Oval Office. So, don't try and have it both ways. Are you a Trump guy, or are you just doing the minimum, going to the Oval Office for the Eagles ceremony, So I think that he's just one of these guys who I think is going to regret what he's doing right now. He's also very religious. So they've gotten their hooks in him that way by he's doing some Christian thing with Kayleigh McEnany, I think, this weekend. So I think they're definitely trying to cultivate him. Obviously, he's a very popular guy in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania politically is a key state. So it seems pretty obvious that that's what they're trying to do here. Whether he's going to continue going down this road, I don't know. Obviously, his quarterback is not down with it because he didn't go to the ceremony.
Yeah, I have so much respect for him, by the way, for not doing that. And I'm so glad the Eagles won. On a lighthearted note, you did post this on your social media. It seems as though these days when Kid Rock makes appearances on Fox News, they're quoting him as, quote, a rock legend. What are your thoughts on that, Ron?
Yeah, that's pretty funny. Like, it's MAGA has such a hard time getting celebrities, whether it's actors or athletes or, singer, rock stars, whatever. Like they don't get the A-listers, of course. They don't even get the B-listers. They're getting like people who are C-listers 20 years ago. That's basically who their celebrities are. That's why they have like Kevin Sorbo and, Roseanne Barr and Kid Rock and all these like washed up has-beens, But so it's one thing to like say, well, look, this is the best we can get, man. Like I kind of would do it like a little tongue in cheek, like, we're rolling out one of the oldies, one of the classics. But instead of doing that, they hype these guys like they're like really big stars still. And it's like, they never actually were stars. So, yeah, I mean, to put him out, I mean, you could say Kid Rock had his moment, like, what was it, late 90s, where he had his little couple albums and he was kind of semi-big. But has he done anything like in the last 25 years? I mean, any new hits out there? I don't know. I don't really follow Kid Rock too closely anymore. But no, it's just funny that they hype these people as much bigger than what they really are. Kirk Cameron is another one I could think of. Scott Baio.
What about Chachi? Yeah, I was just
Scott
going to say
James Woods.
all these guys blocked me on social media.
Washed up.
Yeah, James Woods blocked me. Chachi blocked me. Kid Rock blocked me. They all blocked me on social media. I don't know, Ron. I don't know. Do any of these celebrities block you? I'm curious. You have a massive following. They don't block you.
No, I think most of them don't block me because I generally don't reply to their posts.
Right.
So that's one way you're going to get blocked. And I think a lot of them, they want to sort of know what I'm posting, so they don't block me for that reason. I generally don't get blocked by anybody, really. Yeah. That's kind of cool. I like that. I'm not trying to get blocked by anybody. So I don't mind that they don't block me. And I guess the only theory I could think of is that I don't really engage with them, because most of those guys have monetized accounts and I don't want to help them make money. So I generally don't engage with them for that reason. As much as I would like to, I don't. So that's one reason. But I also think a lot of them follow me at the same time, so they want to follow me.
And your sarcastic humor is very, very smart and very good. So I think a lot of people enjoy that, even if it's to their own expense. So I think that's probably that's probably another reason.
Actually, a lot of them don't hate me for whatever reason, even though they don't like me a lot, but they don't hate me.
And you talk to some wackadoodles on the right on a regular basis, right? To some extent, some of these people are crazy, which I think is awesome. By the way, I think that's a testament to you, because even the crazies on the far right respect what you do. So you got to be doing something right, Ron. Anyway, before we let you go, Ron, and thanks for coming on again, appreciate it. What are you working on today? What article are you going to be putting out today that we can read?
Oh man, no, I'm so glad to have a day off today. I'm having a day off because. Yeah, my podcast partner, Anthony Davis, had to go in for a little minor medical procedure today. So we pre-recorded the show yesterday, which gives me the day off. And we're here in Maine, and it's like our second day we've had that's not miserable in the last 5 months. So it's like 60 degrees and sunny. So I'm enjoying that.
Well, I appreciate you joining us on your day off, Ron. That means a lot. Enjoy yourself and enjoy your day off, my friend. And we will catch up with you next week. Something tells me there'll be a lot more to talk to you about next week. I don't think it'll be a slow news day when you come on. So, Ron,
whatever happens, it'll be Biden's fault.
Everything. Well,
remember that.
It's not just Biden's fault. It's Obama's fault. It's George Soros's fault. It's the radical Democrats. We can go down the list, and then it's undocumented immigrants. Let's not forget about that. And then he just goes straight to brown people. So yeah, no doubt. Ron, eventually Meidas Touch will be on that list too. He'll blame Meidas Touch for all of his problems. Keep up the good work, my friend. Love what you do. Enjoy your day off. We'll catch you next week, Ron. Thank you.
Okay. See ya.
All right. Appreciate it. Ron Filipkowski, everybody, one of the best in the business. I love that guy.